Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, with episode 5 of season 1, The Walking Dead. Wildfire. Doesn't end to be continued, I don't know, but it really is the first of a two-parter on our way out of season 1. The second one, TS 19? TS19, but Wildfire. So then we're done with season 1. Look at that. For those of you who noticed, my thumbnail has changed on these. Compliments YouTube, because they took down my other thumb with the zombie in the sand, the face in the sand. Apparently I violated some sort of pro-family guidelines or something. I don't know. Violated something and they just took it down. So I didn't even bother fighting it out, just changed my thumbnail, so that's why that is, if you noticed. And if you've noticed, my last episode, as well as possibly this one, may not end up until like Monday sometime, just as a result of got a router issue. Apparently we had to send for a new router. I don't know if it was a thunderstorm or something to screw things up, but it's really inhibited my ability to upload in the house. Such a weird thing. So anyways, that's sort of that. So we're heading to the end of season 1. It's been fun. I absolutely love this series, man. I absolutely love this series. I say series. I love how it started. I love where we're at in the characters. And there's a lot to enjoy in this one, for sure. But the director, Ernest R. Dickerson, who directed this particular episode, as a cinematographer, he, this is a little trivia, he shot Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA video. And funny, Eddie Murphy's Raw, remember that? That was huge back in the day. As well as Malcolm X and a slew of other things. As director, he directed a few that I thought were interesting. Juice from 92, Demon Knight from 95, and Bones from 01. Just a couple of interesting choices there that he, as a director. So that is interesting. Glen Mazzara, the writer, began his career as a writer with Nash Bridges, I think. 6 episodes from Nash Bridges, and a lot of TV work. A lot of TV. So it's Wildfire. Really, the title comes from as a nod to Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain. That's interesting. This is a loaded episode, man. This was good. This begins, of course, in the aftermath of the attack on the camp, right? It's got another wonderful bookend. I think I really stressed that on the last episode. This one also has a very interesting bookend involving Dale in something he says in the beginning, and he'll follow it at the end, sort of as a conclusion to remarks that were cut short. And I thought that serves as an interesting bookend of sorts. But it begins in light of the aftermath with Andrea and Amy and her loss. And she, man, this is so tough to watch, man. She is just mourning, and she's grieving, and just over this insane loss. And of course, this is Amy's birthday, right? That we've moved on into the day of now. And of course, they're cleaning up camp. They're trying to make preparations to get out of there, burning bodies and everything else. And of course, you know, Daryl, man, Daryl just doesn't really think, man. I mean, he does come and see reason, but he's very quick to just act. And boy, when Rick tries to approach Andrea, oh man, she pulls out that gun so fast, man. And she's like, what did she say? I know how to work the safety now. And it's a great moment, because Rick just knows, man, hands off immediately. Rick just knows when to step back and when to, you know, step in. And that was not a moment, man, because Andrea is, in spite of what they're thinking, she is a very clear mind. She knows what she's doing, and you will see that the totality of the moment with Amy. And it's long, man. Dale becomes part of that as he comes over and consoles her. Laurie comes over and consoles her. And eventually we're going to have one of one of the great early moments in The Walking Dead, and that's the resurrection of Amy to a zombie. And it is a very slow, and there's even just a slight hint in her eyes that perhaps there's enough of her that there may be, at least for a brief moment, a connection between her, Andrea, and Amy. That's very short-lived, but it does give Andrea an opportunity to relieve herself of pent-up guilt for a lot of things, and in the end, she ultimately, without hesitation, does what she has to do. Doesn't make it, it doesn't make it easy or anything, but she does what she has to do. She's not going to allow anyone else to have a hand in this. And that even goes to when they're burying those from the group. There is a choice to be made. Bury those of the group, burn the rest. She literally works Amy's body herself with a little help from Dale, but she is bent on, this is my sister and this is how I am going to do it. And it's just very emotionally driven with her. And even with Daryl and where he comes from, you can understand why he does what he does. Jim, it's tough because, we find out Jim's been bit. And that terrifies Jim because he knows, man, he is in a group of a few that will, without hesitation, just end his life. But Rick, this is a pivotal moment for him as well. He sees this as an opportunity to perhaps save someone. And so a decision is going to be made, albeit not without argument, it's either for Benning, Georgia, where I did my basic training, it's kind of funny, or go to the CDC. And this, of course, goes back to an earlier character, right? Morgan, was it Morgan? Morgan and his boy? I think Morgan is the one who had hopes that the CDC was still functioning. And so Rick is almost ready to pin the fate of the entire group on this venture. Now you bring Shane in, and Shane is beginning to seriously waver in his trust of Rick, though there is this real tension, right? And Rick, I don't know if he completely understands the tension, although he may. You'd have to be an idiot. No, I shouldn't say it like that. I really shouldn't. I pull back from that statement. You have to imagine you're in a coma and you're out of it, and your best friend has stepped in and he is shielding, taking care of your family. You have to make certain allowances that other things might have happened, I guess is how I'm trying to frame it more correctly. And I'm really curious, as much as I hate the idea that this is going to be dealt with, and I can't remember, I have no clue. I can't remember how far more we have to go before it's dealt with. But that's going to be tough because this is a friendship, and it's being tested right now, and it's you want it resolved, but in a good way, in a way of understanding, that the two can carry on, together. But so in this heated argument about to go to the CDC or not go to the CDC, Shane gets Rick to go out there and do their sweep real quick of the surrounding area, make sure there's no walkers, right? And they get split up just a little bit, and there's this great moment, where Shane, now if you listen to the actor talk about this moment, you can interpret it a few different ways, I guess, but he says that at that moment Shane does believe there is a walker in the woods, and once his sight is on Rick and he realizes it's Rick, it's at that point he can't relinquish himself in that moment. And it's a terrifying moment for him because he knows what that means, that he's contemplating killing Rick. Well, Dale walks in, right? And he catches Shane in this predicament, and all Shane can do is nervously chuckle his way out of it. And Shane has got to make a choice. And I love how his finger twitches on the weapon. It's like he is really he can't believe how close or what he actually contemplated to do. And I think this is just a remarkable moment because Dale just looks at him. He's just like what are you even thinking of? Well, of course, I mean, there's so many dynamics at work here, and you have to imagine, as much as Shane and Laurie tried to hide it, you have to imagine the group also was somewhat up on it, right? In terms of knowing that something was going on. It just wasn't being made public within the group. I don't know, it's interesting. I kind of can't wait till we get to that point where a lot of this stuff gets fleshed out in the open. But the guy who plays Shane says, at that point though, he steps back and realizes the only way he can save his family in terms of the unity of the group, the structure of the group, is to get behind Rick fully and absolutely, and that's more important. And so there's an interesting set of dynamics here going on, and you can interpret it multiple ways, I think. But when you listen to him talk, it's interesting how he looks back and explains from his perspective. The other thing you got working really is some resolution with, oh boy, I'm gonna forget her name and I didn't write it down. Our girl from the Mist, Ed, the abusive husband, who is, of course, one of the, Daryl's just about to put the pickaxe in him, and she comes up and she says, no, let me do it. And he sort of nervously just kind of hands her the pickaxe. Well, it's not just once, twice, but 3, 4, 5 times. And she begins to set loose the pent-up anger that had been built up of all the abuse that had gone on, and how she was never able to react. And that would have been an interesting set of dynamics to carry forward, and how that even works out. And probably a smart decision to just remove Ed from the equation so you don't even have to worry about it. But from a writing point of view, it would have made it tough. How do those things get worked out? Do they get worked out, or does it just end very badly for Ed? I guess the question is, can Ed change? Well, I mean, he's deprived of that, right? He's not going to be allowed as a character. He's not going to be allowed to change. But the question is, in this new environment, in the Walking Dead environment, can they change from who they are into something better? And we're deprived of that a little bit from Ed. It would have been interesting to see if that could have, remember Jim says, that's their marriage. Well, albeit it's their marriage, but that doesn't give a husband license to abuse, beat his wife, and his daughter potentially. That just, it doesn't matter, right? And it does scare, what Shane does scares everyone, right? And that could have had more far-reaching implications further down, and still may. But man, her moment with him, man, is really sad, and in a terrible way. And so you got Jim with the bite, right? He becomes our our character, infamous character from the Dawn of the Dead, who ultimately gets bit, going from one vehicle to another vehicle as they're trying to secure them all, right? And ultimately they got to make a choice of what to do with him, and they do make the choice to go to the CDC, but Morales, his family, they decide to go the other way. And it's really interesting. So when the convoy finally leaves camp, the convoy heading to the CDC turn left, and Morales and his family turn right. And I can't remember if Morales' family ever comes back into the picture again. They may, and maybe you're nodding your head along going, oh yeah, they do. I just can't remember. But funny, they take the left turn, and ultimately it's going to where I have jumped out a little bit. I mean, I revisited the finale. I haven't gone past that, so I can't even remember how season 2 episode 1 even begins, or what is the makeup of that episode. I can't remember. My boys got me to jump out way too far ahead though, and that kind of makes it hard, and you're revisiting things and lining up to talk about it. You just want to push forward because you've already gone so far, right? But Jim ultimately he is left by the side of the highway, presumably to turn into a zombie, right? But the bookend that I referred to earlier with Dale, I didn't write out the complete quote. It is in IMDb though, in the quote section. Dale begins early on when they're arguing about what to do with Jim with his bite. Dale makes the point. He begins to say, I hate to say it, but maybe Daryl is right. Well, at that point, he's cut right off, man. Nobody even gives him a chance to finish his thought. And it's too bad for the group, because that thought does get to be fleshed out later in a bookend way, where Jim has made it pretty clear in his moment of sobriety, clarity, that he, in fact, wants to be left off from the group. And Daryl gets to revisit what he wanted to say, or not Daryl, but Dale gets to go back and revisit what he says, and he says, back in camp, again, this is an incomplete quote, but back in camp, I was just going to suggest that we ask. But I think initially he says, "You misunderstood me." It's a great line. It's a great little bit of dialogue from Dale. But he's like, "You misunderstood me." He said, "Back in the camp, I was going to suggest that we just ask Jim what he wants." And I believe he cements that quote with, "I think we have our answer." And so they do. And so Jim is laid by the wayside. And I said wayside, but he's left behind the convoy pig. Now, there is a scene. I don't know if there was a deleted scene or not for it, but Shane and another do go to a gas station because the one vehicle's belt is busted beyond repair, the one that's been duct taped the whole time. And that scene is completely absent from the episode. So you don't know, like, you just assume they don't run into trouble or anything. They just go, they find the parts, and they come back, and because that vehicle is moving at that point. And then in the end, we're left at the feet of the CDC, or at least what is being used as the CDC. The CDC apparently wouldn't let itself be filmed at. But it looks good. And when they show up, man, it's just literally, it's like a war happened, man. There are bodies everywhere. And the thing is, you don't even know if any zombies are still alive or alive or what. And, and so in a mess of flies and smell and bodies, they make their way to the entrance, the doors of the CDC. Now, we have had a little bit of a intro with this guy. And in this guy, there's one guy left, Jenner, I think his name is, who has been, he tells us that, in fact, we're about 6.5 months since the zombie apocalypse, and a little after that, it goes global in its initial release. But he's at the point, as a result of an accident that we're privy to, he's at the point where he's got no other recourse. He's going to probably even suggest, as he's trying to communicate to anyone who might be listening, he's probably going to shoot his brains out. He's at that point where everything's been exhausted for him, and at this point of exhaustion, Rick and Shane and them show up, and of course, man, they don't think anyone's going to open up the door. They don't think anyone's in there, and Rick is just pleading and screaming into this camera that may be being moved by a person, may not be being moved. Zombies are starting to collect, and you just got this great moment of tension, and then suddenly at the last second, the door just opens, and there you go, end of episode, right? Wow. And so the finale then will all be inside the CDC, and we'll cover that when we get there. But some great moments of tension, some great writing in terms of the characters, and I'm glad I don't remember what's really coming down the pike. It's going to feel fresh in a way. The one I'm most intrigued by, though, is the tension exists between Rick and Shane that will have to get fleshed out. And I have a funny feeling I'm going to be saddened by that. But I can't remember exactly. I see initially in the initial run, I bailed around somewhere in season 3, and I can't remember everything. I mean, I'm remembering some of these episodes as I revisit them, but it's been so long in its initial run that, it's like fresh. It's like, it's new, right? So it's pretty cool. So Wildfire. Episode 5. And I didn't say it dropped on November 28th, 2010. And again, it's director Ernest R. Dickerson. So good stuff. What's next? The finale, and then we launch into season 2. As always, we leave these things off with "Go Dogs."
This is not a dream. Not a dream. It might be useful to